Chapter 9. A Little Help from My Friends. Willie, it's a disaster, Lizzie shouted as she came charging up to the bus stop on Monday morning. What are you talking about? Where did you and Dodger disappear to? And what's the disaster? Are you okay? Is Dodger all right? She said, Dodger's fine, and I'm fine. We flew on a magic carpet. It was brilliant. Dodger told me I was a much better carpet pilot than... he said I was a natural. Oh, so Lizzie was a better carpet pilot than I was, huh? Super. So, Miss Flying Ace, what's the problem? The problem is where Dodger said he was gonna go after he dropped me off. Dear reader, here's some more life advice from your friend Willie. If your two best friends, one of whom has access to a magical object, suddenly disappear right after telling you not to worry about it, do yourself a favor, worry about it. If one of those friends tells the other one he's just popping into the school to fix something, worry about it even more. If the other friend gets all cocky about her ability to fly one of those magical objects, try really hard not to slug her. What do you mean after he dropped you off? Maybe you should just tell me the whole story from the beginning. Fortunately, the bus was late, because this story was a doozy. Well, Lizzie said, it started when we left your room. Obviously. We reappeared in the Field of Dreams, and Dodger explained the whole flying thing to me. But he told me that if he let me fly, I would owe him a favor later. And I had to give my word of honor. That was tricky. I trust that Dodger means well, but his ideas, well, you know. Yeah, I knew exactly what she meant. I gave him my word, though. A friend is a friend, right? Plus, I admit it, I really wanted to fly, so he gave me the basics, and those were so easy that pretty soon I was doing an ollie over the town water tower. You know, like in skateboarding when you push down on the back of your board and do a little jump. I'm sure Dodger showed you that one. It's so elementary. Anyway, while you were doing your ollie over the water tower, did Dodger tell you the origin of the term? My next door neighbor's older brother is big into skateboarding, and he once told me that ollie was short for alley-oop, which is the French circus performers used to shout before leaping into the air. But Dodger informed me that it really comes from Ali Baba. Apparently, Dodger was once showing him how to fly over the pyramids in Egypt, and listen, I said gruffly. I was kind of hurt that Dodger had taught Lizzie more than he had taught me, but I didn't want to tell her that. Can we just get on with the story? Sure, but you don't have to be so snappish about it. I don't see why you should get to do all the cool magical stuff while I just sit in my room, and I cleared my throat forcefully. Okay. So after I mastered the Ollie maneuver, Dodger asked me to identify the worst weaknesses of your speech so he could fix them. We were doing some Immelman turns, which are just so dead easy, and wait, can you back up a minute? Immelman turns. Willie, don't you remember? When you do a half of a vertical loop in the air, then flip back right side up. No, I don't care about the turns. What was the thing about the speech? Oh, that. I told him I thought the biggest flaw was your atrociously simple vocabulary. It was weird. He was, he said, right, vocabulary. That's what I thought, perfect. Then he took control of the carpet, swooped across half the town in one steep dive, practically crash landed in my backyard and said, wow, look, we're at your house already. Gotta go. See you tomorrow. I've got to go see a guy about some fancy words. The next thing I knew, he was gone. You know what this means, don't you? That my best friend thinks I'm a moron? No, Willie, think for a minute. As far as I know, Dodger only knows one vocabulary expert. He told us that he'd been on the phone with a member of his family, right? Yeah, so? So you've met a member of Dodger's family, right? A blue chimp who sounded like a walking thesaurus? Jeepers, I couldn't believe it. For better or for worse, Lizzie was right about one thing. Dodger's brother, Roger, had to be back in town, which was weird because for a little while there, I thought that Dodger and Roger might be the same person. Chimp, whatever. The bus finally pulled up to our stop and the conversation ended. When we got to our seats, Lizzie wanted to put our heads close together and whisper some more about the situation, but I made a big show of busting out with my music player and popping in my earbuds. I knew I was being kind of obnoxious to her, but I just didn't want to hear any more about what a great, smart flyer she was. It was the day before the big speech assembly, but nobody said anything to me at all day about the election. James just sat at his desk smirking, like he was already planning his victory party, and Craig spent the day chewing his fingernails down to dirty, ragged stumps. Every time I looked at Lizzie, She was turning and tumbling her pencil through the air with a dreamy expression on her face. I suppose if my flying lesson hadn't ended up with me hugging a tree, maybe I would have kept reliving it too. When I got home, I had to go through a whole debriefing with my parents. Amy had clued them in about the election. They were all pumped up about it. Here's what my mom had to say. "Oh, William, we are so proud of you. You're just blossoming before our eyes. Just a few weeks ago, you were so timid that we actually worried you were too shy. But now, wow, our baby boy is a baseball star, an amateur stuntman, and now a handsome, dashing politician. And so modest, too. I can't believe you didn't tell us about this. Why, if Amy hadn't spilled the beans, known we wouldn't have even known there was an election coming up. Oh, don't roll your eyes like that, Willie. Your sister is just so fascinated by the big boy adventures of her older brother. She actually has a whole fantasy built up about a mysterious, deep-voiced campaign helper with blue hair, if you can believe that. It's just so cute. Anyway, if you need any help, just ask. I'm great at making posters, and you know your father is always looking for an excuse to get involved with your activities. And Amy tells me you have a speech to rewrite. You know, your father does write for a living. Now, normally I refuse to accept school help from my parents, because if I asked either of them the slightest question, my mom and dad each had a tendency to get totally obsessed with the assignment. I remember this one time I asked my dad to help me solve a math problem about time zones, and he spent the next several hours running around the house bringing every watch, cell phone, clock in the house to the dining room table, resetting them and aligning them on a map of the world that he dug up from somewhere in the recesses of his huge roll-top desk. I didn't have the heart to tell him that there were like thousands of websites with detailed live-action time zone maps, and that I finished the homework before he even got all the clocks downstairs. But this time, I really needed the help, and my father actually was an expert in this field. So I sat down with him, and we worked on my speech for an hour. By the end, I was pretty proud of the work. Now all I had to do was stop Dodger and Roger from ruining everything. I thanked my dad and went up to my room. I closed the door behind me, turned on some music as an anti-Amy precaution, and said, "Dodger?" There was no answer. I rubbed his lamp, and he appeared beside me, groaning and covering his eyes. "Dude," he said, "is it morning already? Man, we were up so late last night breaking into the... I was up so late, reading comic books with, myself. Yeah, reading reading alone, because, well, that's how I read, alone. I raise an eyebrow. So you're saying you didn't go on any secret political missions last night? Missions that might have involved, oh, I don't know, a family member of yours? Dodger shifted his weight from foot to foot, looked everywhere but at me, and said, well, his eyes flickered over to the lamp. Aha! I rubbed the lamp, and suddenly Dodger's brother Roger was next to me, yawning. He was fully dressed in a pinstriped, dark blue suit, a very wrinkled white shirt, and a loosely knotted tie. His fur was sticking up in all directions. If you've never seen a chimpanzee with bedhead, it's really quite a spectacle, especially if he starts talking to you while another chimp is jumping up and down nearby, frantically gesturing for him not to say anything. Hello, greetings. Felicitations, Willie. It's good, satisfying, pleasurable to see you again. Honestly, when my brother, my sibling, my mother's other child called up the great Lasorda and asked for help getting you elected, I thought the whole thing sounded like a recipe for disaster, a Titanic in the making, if you will. But the master's plan was brilliant, sparkling, inventive. In fact, I think you will win the day, vanquish your foe, rise up to stunning new heights of... Willie, why are you staring at me in that strangely hostile manner? It's not every day that I break into a school, cast a magic vocabulary spell upon a speaking platform, and then settle down to a richly deserved slumber, only to be rudely awakened, tumbled out of a sleeping chamber, roused by an ungrateful young... Be quiet, I shouted. What do you mean you broke into my school and cast a spell on the podium? What did you do? Dodger was still jumping up and down next to me, making throat-slitting motions at Roger. Fortunately, it takes more than a direct threat to keep Roger quiet. You know, he said huffily, you really shouldn't tell me to be quiet and then ask me two questions in the next breath. It creates a paradox, an oxymoron, a conundrum. Am I meant to obey your first instruction or accede to the demands that follow? Honestly, I can see why Dodger felt you needed communicative assistance. Anyway, the operation was quite ingenious. The great Lasorda gave me some enchanted dust that confers magical loquacity and instructed me to sprinkle it on the platform from which you are to speak, present, deliver your oration. In short, the next young person who gives a speech at that podium will sound exactly like me, myself, I. All you have to do is speak first, and you will be just as splendidly well spoken as I am. Your classmates will love, adore, and admire you, and you will be sure to earn the coveted laurels of victory. Hoo boy!